Pets are super special. If you have one in your life, you'll know this. I don't need to tell you that. You know that, right? And there's so many people in my life who've got pets in their lives who are just like a proper member of the family. And I wanted to do a little vlog video like this and talk about that. So for anyone who watches my channel, especially if you have seen my Twitch or follow me on social media or anything like that, you'll know that I have a cat called Honey. She's a 16-year-old tortoiseshell. I adopted her when she was 10, so she was already like a mature adult cat when I got her. It's not like I've had her for 16 whole years, but and it's kind of a funny one. I've always had, well, since I was 10, I've always had cats. So for the last 20 years, I've pretty much always had cats with some gaps in between. You know, I got a couple of kittens for my 10th birthday, and one of those unfortunately died quite soon after I got it because a neighbor dog came and grabbed it and ran away with it. It was a greyhound, so I think it was just in their nature. But the other one, Tiger, ended up living for a few years after that, and he was one of my closest friends. And I've had cats after that, and I've had, you know, varying degrees of relationships with them. Cats all have personalities, and sometimes you just have a really, really deep relationship. Any pet has personality, and so yeah, you know, relationships, just like human relationships, will differ from pet to pet and from person to person. The reason I wanted to make this video is actually because of my cat Honey. As I said, she's 16 years old, so I have to bring her to the vet, you know, every so often because she needs lots of checkups, because as cats get older, I mean 16 is quite ripe for a cat, they are faced with more health issues. And so I brought her to the vet recently enough, I guess a couple of months at this point, and they found a lump in her stomach, and which was concerning. So I had to, over like the space I think of 3 or 4 weeks, I had to bring her back in like every week. They tried some worming treatment, they did some blood tests, they took samples of the lump. There was just a lot of waiting, testing, that kind of stuff. In the end, the results were inconclusive. They're not sure if they just didn't take enough of the sample of the lump, or if there just wasn't anything negative to find. So essentially, I'm now at this point where they told me to just leave her for a few months, keep an eye on her, and bring her back in a few months, and then I can check her out and see what's what and see if she's alright. So anyway, that whole thing was incredibly stressful. I had to take mental health days from work. I was just a bit of a lump. Like, even thinking back on it now, I'm fighting back tears right now. It was like, it does seem a bit crazy to say it, but it does feel like, you know, it was like, I think the emotion that I feel in relation to her potentially not being around anymore equates to like one of my parents being gone, which is crazy. Like, I'm like almost 31 years old. I've known my parents a lot longer. My parents brought me into this world, you know, but it's so hard to explain that, I think, unless you are in a relationship, or unless you've ever had a relationship like that with your pets. It's funny because before I made this video, I decided to, you know, have a look online to see if anyone had made a video like pets are family type style video before, and I couldn't really find anything. The only thing I could find was blogs of people getting angry about millennials thinking that, you know, pets are like a good substitute to children and how terrible that is, and blah 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 blah. And it's so stupid because, first of all, as I say, like, you can have these like incredibly strong connections with your pet, where, I mean, the thing is, it's hard for me to compare, right? Because I'm not a parent. I don't have kids myself. I would love to. I'm not one of those millennials, right, who's like, oh, I'd rather have cats than kids. But I don't hold that against the people who are, like, because I myself have that incredibly strong connection with my cat Honey, that I can see why some people of my generation, you know, not everyone likes kids. I'm sorry, that's the hard truth. As much as I love kids, I understand that other people don't, but they still want to give that love to someone, and they still, you know, while they might not want to bring more kids into the world for whatever reason, everyone has their own reasons. I've heard so many different reasons, and they're valid. They're all valid. It doesn't mean that you don't want to, like, nurture something or love something that much, to that extent. I guess my stance on this is like making that counterpoint to those people. I mean, I had the idea to make this video before I even knew that people were like writing these blog posts. I was going through this whole situation with Honey, and I just kept thinking, about like my life without her, and how I don't know how I was gonna go on. But I genuinely think that whenever it happens, it's gonna happen. Obviously, she's 16 years old. That it's coming. She's old. She's like she's like a grandma cat at this point. When you compare her age to like human age, I'm just gonna be hollow. I think I'm gonna really struggle for a long time when the time comes. And I think it's partly why I wanted to make this video now. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm, again, fighting back the tears, and I can't even imagine making this video when that time comes, so I wanted to do it now, I guess. It's weird thinking back to before I adopted her, because, right, so I used to live in London. I only moved out of London a few months ago. I lived in London for 6 years, and I really, really wanted a cat. I hadn't had a cat for a few years at that point, and I was just like, I really want a cat. And obviously having a cat in London can be quite tough with like living in flats, because a lot of flats don't allow pets, and I really, really wanted one. And I finally lived in a flat with 2 other girls, and they allowed pets, or they allowed us to have a cat. They were like, we're fine with a cat, there used to be a cat there, can help with like mice and stuff, I guess. So I was like, great, awesome, that's awesome. And then I started looking at cats, and I was like, at the time I was like, I want to get a mature cat. I think I'd been in London for about a year, and again, at the time I was moving around a lot. So before that I'd spent like a year in Paris, and I spent some time in Greece, and I was moving every year or so. And that I'd been in London about a year, and I didn't really know how long I was going to stay there. So I didn't want to make like a huge commitment, I guess. So the thought of getting a kitten was a bit like, oh, if I get a kitten now, you know, that's a long-term thing. Like, a kitten will be around, you know, until well past the time that I start having kids and stuff. And whether or not that's gonna happen in London, or if I want to do that somewhere else, I didn't know at the time. I was young, you know, I still am young, but I was even younger then. And so I was like, I want to get an adult cat, because it's not as much of a commitment, which is like a really weird and harsh way of looking at it, but I guess that's just that was my thought process at the time. I'll be honest, that's what it was. And I kind of started looking around, but I think I kind of decided against it at some point. I don't know why, I don't remember what my reasoning was. I think maybe I decided that even an adult cat was too much of a commitment at the time. Anyway, I kind of had given up, and then one of my housemates sent me a link to this. It was on Facebook. Somebody had posted that there was a cat that needed a home. It was 10 years old, and I was like, all right, fine, I'll meet the cat, whatever, it's, you know. And I went around to the house. It was also a flat in London, and I went around and I met Honey. And Honey was, as I say, 10 years old, super overweight. I'd never had an overweight cat before, I'll be honest. And I was like, oh, okay, this is Honey. And she was super friendly, so nice. But yeah, I was a bit like, okay, well that was Honey, you know, or not that bothered. Like, not that I didn't like Honey, but I'd kind of already made a decision about not adopting a cat at all. I'd kind of already made that decision. So like meeting Honey was probably a silly idea if I'd already made that decision. But anyway, made that decision and I went back home, and later on her old owner messaged me and essentially was like, they'd really like me to have Honey because when I'd met her, they'd said to me she's usually really shy, and they were really surprised about like how she just took to me so quickly, and she really seemed to like me. And in that message, she kind of reiterated the same thing, saying something along those lines, and that they'd really like her to go live with me and for me to take her. And all of a sudden, I was like, oh shit, okay, I wasn't really expecting that. So then I was a bit like, oh, okay, now I need to make a decision about whether I tell them no or whether I adopt a cat after having decided not to. Obviously, long story short, you know how that ended up. I adopted her, and it's been probably one of the best decisions of my life. Like, ooh, it's so emotional. She's been there for me through a lot of stuff. She's just like the cuddliest, friendliest, best friend you could ever have. And whenever I'm sick, she comes and she knows and she cuddles with me. If I'm sad, she comes and she knows and she cuddles with me. She's so friendly and lovely, and I just want her to stick around forever. Ideally. Obviously that's not gonna happen, but let's not dwell on that because I'm gonna start crying. Anyway, she's got a hold of my heart. And yeah, that's what pets can be. Pets are more than just, or can be more than just I guess an accessory. I can't even really find the words I'm trying to say, but you know, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to say is that pets are family. Pets, just because they're not humans, just because they can't talk, doesn't mean that they don't communicate. Yeah. I thought this was gonna be a really nice, like, uplifting, fun little video. It's just gotten super dark. It's not even dark, it's just really depressing. Fucking hell, like, Jesus. Anyway, I don't really know how to end this now because I kind of just thought I would work it out. If you have a pet, go give it a cuddle from me, please. Tell it you love it. Give it a kiss on its little nose. And rub its belly. And hold it tight. I'm gonna go cry now.